So this video is to help review simplifying rational expressions. It's also a great factoring review. Again, all of this should be a review, so I'm going to go kind of fast. Feel free to slow it down, watch an example more than once, or watch the whole video more than once. But these are skills that you need to really have solid under your belt before we move forward. Okay, looking at number one. So number one is different from 2 through 5 because number one is a monomial over a monomial, so there's no factoring that needs to be done. You can just cancel. So if I look at the 10 and 16, I can reduce by 2, x to the 5th and x cubed, subtracting my exponents here. And with the y's, I'm going to get a y to the 5th, but it's going to be on the bottom because that's where I have more of my y's to begin with. So don't ever write y to the negative 5th. Always just put it wherever you had more of them. So now we get into the factoring. So for number 2 on the top, I'm going to GCF a 4. And GCF is greatest common factor, not just a common factor. So you could take out a 2, but obviously you want to take the biggest one you can out. And that's going to leave me with x plus 2. And then on the bottom is a trinomial. So I want the factors of 6 that subtract to give me 1. That's going to be 3 and 2. I want to end up with a negative 1. So I want a negative 3 and a positive 2. And then the x plus 2 and the x plus 2 can cancel. And that leaves me with 4 over x minus 3 as my answer. Number 3, the top, I can't do anything because it's a monomial, so I'm going to leave him be. On the bottom, I'm going to GCF again. I'm going to GCF a 2 and an x, and that leaves me with x minus 5. Now, normally when you cancel, you can only cancel things that are exactly the same, like the x plus 2 and the x plus 2. But if they are monomials, you can kind of chip away at them a little bit like we did in number 1. So with the 8 and the 2, that's going to reduce to a 4. And the x and the x cubed is going to reduce to an x squared on top. And then I'm just left with the x minus 5 on the bottom. Number 4, okay, so this is a review of 2 other types of factoring. The top is the difference of squares, and the bottom is cubes. Difference of squares you've been doing since Math 1, and the difference of cubes I think you learned in either Math 2 or Math 3. So difference of squares is really easy. It's 2 parentheses. The exact same thing goes in both parentheses, and it will always be 1 plus 1 minus. So I'm going to have x and x. 16 is a square because it's 4 times 4. And I'm always going to have 1 plus and 1 minus. And if you think about it, it makes sense because when you multiply this back out, I need that middle term to cancel. And I would have a 4x and a negative 4x, and they would cancel. So the bottom is cubes. 64 is a cube because it's 4 times 4 times 4. And with cubes, you have a short parentheses and a long parentheses. And you're going to use SOAP, and I'm pretty sure that's how all of our teachers at Sal teach it. Those are for your signs. So I'm going to have my x and my 4 because those are the things that get cubed to give me x cubed and 64. This spot right here is always this guy squared. This spot way back here is always this guy squared, always. Then the spot in the middle are these 2 guys multiplied together. And that's the pattern that you follow for cubes, no matter what. Okay, so now we're going to do the SOAP. Same, opposite, always positive. And those are for my 3 signs. So the first sign is going to be the same as the original problem, opposite the original problem, and always positive. And then just a heads up, this will always look like a trinomial, but it will never factor to be a trinomial. So don't spin your wheels messing with it. Number 5, sometimes people look at number 5 and they think it's squares, but the y does not have an even power. So this is actually just a GCF of an x squared, and that's going to leave me with y minus 1. And then on the bottom, I'm going to GCF an x cubed, And that's going to leave me with 1 minus y. So when you look at something and you're trying to factor it and you kind of get stuck, just kind of go back and think GCF. And sometimes GCF is harder to see when there are no numbers there. These are monomials, so I can reduce them even though they're not the same. Okay. On the top, I have a y minus 1, and the bottom, I have a 1 minus y. If this was addition, I could cancel them, no problem. But subtraction, they are not the same. But what I can do, it's kind of like GCFing a negative 1 out. If I take a negative 1 out of the bottom, that's going to make that 1 now a negative, and that y now a positive. And then if I just rewrite it, it's going to become a y minus 1. Now, you can write this process out every time, or you can just remember, if I have two things that are being subtracted, and I really want to flip them around, if I can just throw down a negative 1, it allows you to flip the two things that are being subtracted around. So now I can cancel that y minus 1 with this y minus 1. However, I am now left with this negative 1 that I created. Now, there's nothing on top. So you could put the negative on the bottom. You'd have to put a 1 on top since it doesn't have anything. Negatives on the bottom look really, really odd. So I am going to write it on the top. All right, for multiplication, we're just going to kind of, you can multiply and your numbers are going to get really big and then try to reduce it, or you can reduce as you go. Remember that anything on the top can reduce with anything on the bottom. They don't have to be on top of each other, and they don't have to be diagonal from each other. So let's see, I'm going to cancel the 4 and the 16 and the A cubed and the 5 and the 15 and the B and the B to the 6. So I have 3a squared b to the 5th over 4. And then I just give that one last look to make sure I got everything. There's nothing in there that can reduce, and I'm good. I'm going to erase this a little bit just to give me some room. Okay. On this one, let's see. I've got a trinomial on the top left. Factors of 24 that subtract to give me a 5. That's 8 and 3. I need a negative 5, so I want a negative 8 and a positive 3. Bottom is going to be a GCF with a 2 and an X. And that's going to give me 3 plus X times, the top is just a single 5x squared. All right, now the bottom, that's that thing, the subtraction that's kind of backwards. So I'm going to go ahead and throw down my negative 1, and that allows me to flip that around. I'm now going to cancel. So I'm going to cancel the x plus 3 and the 3 plus x. They're both addition. They could be flipped around or not. It doesn't matter. The x minus 8 with the x minus 8. The 2 and the 5 can't go, but the x and the x squared can go. So it looks like on top I have a 5 and an x, and on the bottom I have a 2 and that negative 1, so I'm going to put that on the top.